Welcome, Myriam. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. Hi, everyone. My name is Myriam Reynolds. I'm the Associate Director for CAPS, which is the Student Counseling Center. The Dallas and Houston centers is the ones that I'm responsible for. So here's a little bit about me so you know. I'm a licensed professional counselor and an art therapist. And I'm sorry, y'all, I have two screens, so I'm going to be looking back and forth. I apologize for that. I know it's a little weird. Like I said, I'm the associate director for CAPS. I have two grown kids. One of them is a TW student, and I was a foster mother and a surrogate mother in the past. And I have a chocolate lab named Bella who's super neurotic. And I've been managing parenting guilt for decades. It's never goes away. It's a thing. Um, all right, here's just a little bit about CAPS. Obviously, I can't represent CAPS without telling y'all a little bit about what we do and how you could access us if you need it. So the top number is our main number in Denton, which has receptionists that answer. So they could schedule your appointment if you need to. You could also call directly Dallas and Houston, but that's probably the best number to use. We do individual group couples counseling. We do crisis services. We do outreaches like this one. There's our website and there's the crisis numbers if you should ever need them. All right, so we're going to talk about guilt, which is not my favorite thing, but we're going to talk about it and see if we can figure out a way to kind of reframe guilt. We'll talk a little bit about time management and support and self-care and communication, and then we'll end talking about mindfulness, which is so important to pretty much everything. So um, and I know that I'm preaching to the choir by saying this, but I just want to acknowledge these things because I do think like acknowledging what you're going through is a really important thing. It's a really important part of this. So this is a really challenging thing what y'all are doing, and hopefully it's rewarding. And it's a really common thing to feel torn and to feel guilt about balancing different things in our life. It's a really common experience, particularly for women, I think. And yeah, we're going to talk about some other some strategies so that we can deal with this. So, I mean, I think really the why of this is the time trade-offs, right? So anytime that you spend doing something for school, you're not spending with your kids and vice versa, right? So, and I'm sure people are also working and doing other things. So, there's more time trade-offs than that, but we're going to focus on this particular one. Um, and then, of course, the academic pressure, the fear of not doing well, the fear of failure, all that kind of thing, financial stress, um, for sure. School is expensive, childcare is too, um, and societal expectations, which is just is so hard for I think parents because we get that so much of the time. Um, on either side, right? Just like there's just so much, if you're not working, then you're not contributing. If you are working, then you're leaving the kids. Like there's so much that goes into that with the societal expectations. However, your why in doing this is because education is going to benefit you and your child's future, right? That's why we do it. So kind of like what I said before, guilt is really normal. It's really common. It shouldn't hold you back though. So I want to see if we can reframe guilt as motivation. And I have a couple of other suggestions for reframing too. That's just something we do in counseling a lot. It's really helpful a lot of times just to see something in a different way. So instead of viewing guilt as inevitable or as failure or something horribly, horribly negative, I want you all to try to challenge yourselves to view it as dedication, right? So it's a small shift, and maybe I don't even know if this makes sense to y'all. Let me know if it doesn't, but it's a really really powerful way to just kind of shift it and feel a little bit differently about it. And I hope y'all can learn just a couple of things to relieve guilt, but this is a really important one if you can do this. And remind yourself that your kids are watching you, right? They're watching you balance these things. They're watching you better yourself. And that's really important. And that's good for them to see their parents doing that, right? Um, it really is. Even they're learning what it looks like to have dedication, right? To have motivation, to struggle a bit, like they're seeing all of it. And I think that can be really positive. and I kind of said this, but obviously our education is going to lead us to, better opportunities, right? So just kind of harping on the why we're all doing this kind of thing. And then I want y'all to try, there's a lot of science behind affirmations. I think they can feel kind of corny sometimes to people, but I do want you to kind of consider this one and see if you can say this to yourself, just, silently by yourself right now if you want to. I'm not neglecting my child. I'm building a better life for them. You just try to let that sink in a little bit. Say it to yourself if you need to. All right, let's quickly talk about managing time. I know y'all are doing this, already, but I'm just here to remind you of a couple of things and hopefully, share something that might be helpful. Um, we're going to prioritize, of course. And I'm a big fan of using time blocking systems to kind of like decide when you're doing what, especially if there's a deadline coming up. For every deadline I usually like work backwards and decide how much time I'm spending here, how much time here, and I even will write things like sleep, self-care, this is what I'm going to eat, that kind of thing, so that I know that I'm going to have enough time to do the thing when it's due. Um, I think the idea of combining activities is also can be kind of fun and you know, um, it could be a thing that y'all do together if you have a school age kid who's done homework. But studying when your child naps, obviously, or does homework. Um, Setting boundaries, I think, is important, and it's important to communicate with your professors and your family about what's going on in your schedule. Um, Productivity tools. I think most of us now are using, Google Calendar at least, or different Outlook calendars, different things like that that have our, where we're supposed to be when. But I'm also a huge fan of task managers. So Google has one that's kind of just attached to it called Google Tasks, and there's also an app called TickTick. There's actually a bunch of apps out there for tracking tasks and when to do what. I still like Post-its. I'm kind of a Post-it person still. So I definitely have, things that I'm trying to remember out in visual for me. I love using the electronic things, but I also have to have visual reminders a lot of times because I don't know if that's old school or if that's just me being a visual person, but I have to see what I need to do. Um, I'm a huge fan of the Pomodoro method, which is where you set a timer. So a lot of times if I'm really struggling to get started with something, I'll set a timer for 15 minutes, just 15 minutes. And I'll tell myself, okay, just get started. Just do this for 15 minutes and you can take a break. And so what ends up happening is if I can do the 15 minutes, usually I can like reset my timer and keep going. Sometimes I do need to take a little break if it's really hard or whatever. Writing is particularly hard for me. So that's one, if I'm writing a long document, I have to take breaks and stuff like that. But Pomodoro, when I'm kind of in the flow, I can set the timer for 50 minutes and then take a 10-minute break. Sometimes I'll do 55 minutes and take a 5-minute break. It depends on what's going on. Sometimes I need a full 15-minute break. So it might be 45-10 or 45-15, but see what works for you. But the Pomodoro method is tried and true. Yeah. See how that works for you. Okay, let's talk about support a little bit. So, you're actually getting support right at this exact moment. So you're using your campus resources for support. Just a reminder to lean on friends and family and ask for help when needed. I know that's hard for people. It's really hard to ask for help a lot of times, especially when you really need it. But this is another one that I sometimes will try to reframe. So if I'm feeling guilty because I'm asking for help for someone, instead of just that gross kind of heavy guilt feeling, I will try to reframe that to gratitude for the person that's helping me. And that feels so much better kind of for everyone. I know that it makes me feel better. And then if I'm in gratitude, I can express to the person that's helping how much I appreciate it. And it's just better. It's better for everyone. So that's a little reframe that I'm just going to throw in there. But lean on people. You have to. I mean, we have to. It takes a village. Connect with other student parents, share experiences, support each other, kind of thing. All right, so let's talk about taking care of ourselves without feeling guilty. One moment. So I feel bad as a therapist saying this to people, but self-care sort of is not really like optional. You got to do it, even if it's a little bit of it. You just got to do it. When we're burnout and our mental health is suffering, we're not really good to anyone, right? At that time, we're not going to be good at any of our roles. So there's been a lot of research that mini breaks, like 10 minutes, can really help. I was actually surprised a little bit at the research that came out recently about that. But they have been proven to help. You can recharge, you can take a break, and it can help you in even 10 minutes. So try to schedule some of that if you can. Um, and then I really want y'all to celebrate every single thing that happens, every semester, every class, every assignment, everything that you're doing, everything your accomplishment is or accomplishing is leading you towards your ultimate goal. And it's just really important to acknowledge that. And you don't have to, have a party every time you you finish something, but just acknowledge it and just let yourself feel good about it for a little bit. It'll be really helpful in motivation and, lots of things actually, just feeling better. Um, I like the idea of sort of communicating with the kids. So letting them understand, kind of what your goals are and why you're doing what you're doing. And I love the idea of sort of studying with them, if that's possible for your age child. Um, Again, they're watching and they're seeing you be dedicated and do multiple things. And that's a really good thing for them to see. Um, and I think quality over quantity when it comes to spending time with kids. Like quality time is just, um, you can do it in short, meaningful bursts, right? It doesn't have to be forever. And that can be really helpful. So sort of like connecting. So if we don't have a lot of time to spend with someone, if we, turn around and look at our kid and talk to them and, make eye contact, those kind of connections can be really helpful, even more so than spending a whole lot of time. So I just want y'all to think about that. That's a little bit of a mindfulness thing too, right there. And, I'm going to touch briefly on that in a moment, but, um, yeah, here's a little studying together. All right, let's talk about mindfulness. All right, y'all, this is actually one of my very favorite things to talk about. If I could only give, a client like one tool, it would probably be this one, honestly. Just because I think in this day and age, we're just so scattered, right? We're just not present where we are. We're doing so many things. So the idea of mindfulness is not for you to spend, hours and hours on a cushion meditating. That's not, some people do it that way, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm sort of talking about the being present in the moment, even if it's just for a little bit, right? Like in your body, in your breath, here now, paying attention to what's happening in front of you. It's really hard to do. It sounds really simple. It's really hard to do, but the more you do it, the better you get at it. I've been doing this for a long time and I can sort of like check back in when I need to. I don't usually stay there. I have a very active brain and I'm all over the place and I'm multitasking too. But the ability to sort of check in and just kind of like, feel your breath, kind of be where you are is just so important. So I'm talking about it as the sort of practice of coming back to the present moment. I think it's really important too if we're trying to go back and forth between tasks, right? If we're like 1 minute we're talking to a kid and the next minute we're doing this, like those kinds of back and forth things, I think can be really difficult and disorienting. And I think that mindfulness can help with that. I really do. Um, you can do it kind of on the fly too. You don't, again, like you don't have to spend, all this time meditating. It's not really about that. Just about being present, checking in with yourself, taking a deep breath when you need to, like even a big sigh when you need to. Um, I I kind of float this idea to some of my clients sometimes of, just sort of experimenting with mindfulness in terms of, um, maybe just like try monotasking instead of multitasking. So that's the idea that you're just going to do one thing. And that is really, really hard to do. But that in and of itself is a mindfulness practice, right? So if you decide, I don't know, that you're going to make a cup of tea or whatever, and you're just going to make the tea, right? You're just going to sit there, you're going to wait for the water to get hot. I have one of those like electric kettles. It's really fast, but still I'll set it and walk away and go do something else. So like, see if you can do one thing. Just sit there, like make your tea, smell it, touch the warmth, like be present with it. Another one I kind of try to play with is like, see if I can just brush my teeth and not be doing 100 other things in my head while I'm doing that. So just these little moments of just like, see if you can monotask. You could even try it with one of your kids. You could just be like, I'm going to see if I can just listen and be present and play or whatever for just a little bit of time. It's really interesting. So much harder to do. This stuff sounds so easy. It just, it's just so easy to talk about it like, oh, just be mindful. But it's actually really, really difficult. It takes people a long time um, to get better at it, but it is a practice, just like changing how you're thinking about, what's going on for you. Right. So some of these things about like reframing, like turning guilt into, dedication or turning, feeling guilty about someone helping you into gratitude. Those things take time. You have to be aware of how you're feeling. You have to be aware of your thoughts in order to make those shifts. So again, that's mindfulness. Um, And if anyone, if anyone has any questions about this or wants to, discuss this any further, we certainly can. I'm really passionate about it. I think it's one of the best things that we have in terms of tools. I really do. It's like up there with like counseling and medication for being effective for people for all kinds of issues, like all kinds of issues. Um, anyway, so just that's my little mindfulness pitch. I really do want y'all to even just practice just a little bit of it. Just see if you can be present for just a few minutes. Take a deep breath, look someone in the eye, just kind of come back to your own breath. I love this image. All right, so a lot of this is just hanging in there, right? It's just kind of keep going, keep doing what you're doing. An investment in yourself is an investment in your children and their future. I know I said that earlier, but I'm reiterating. You're not alone. And then again, like guilt is a sign that you care about something, but let's not let that define us, right? And you're doing something brave and inspiring for yourself and your child. And just a little reminder to give yourself grace and that you are enough. Those are hard. Um, so that's the end. I'm happy to talk about questions or talk about any of these subjects. If you guys have any questions or comments, there's my email if you should need it. Um, yeah, I'll just kind of open it up if anyone's got anything.
Yeah, and I will go ahead and I'll stop recording now so that if you have a question, you want to keep it a little bit, just for this particular session, we can definitely do so. So let